5, 4, 3. Oh, phone's gone off. Who's that? That's the O3C
Jonathan
Discord.
Dunn. Is it?
Nintendo found furious that Tears of the Kingdom might be a rehash of the greatest game of all time. I mean, that's the ridiculous thing, isn't it? I hate people so much. It's like, people are awful.
Was that a headline from that site, Hard Drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what people are like. They're they're awful.
Yeah.
People are so stupid. I hate people.
They do some really good articles.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I just appreciate the headlines more than having to read the joke.
I mean, you get the joke from the headline, don't you? And that's just like, okay, yeah.
And they are written very well. There was one around like one of the Nintendo Directs.
Yeah.
And I can't remember how it was worded, but it was about like world's biggest Earthbound fan, like can't wait to play it for the first time.
That's brilliant. Did you see the Nintendo April Fool's video?
No, what was it?
It was Shigeru Miyamoto did a direct announcing that that you could now on Nintendo Switch Online you could switch the voices of all the Mario games to the movie versions, and so you could have they had like classic Mario and then Chris Pratt just being like, "Way!" or like Donkey Kong Country, and it's just Seth Rogen going. It's really
I didn't see it.
It's really good. Yeah, and like Luigi's Mansion 3 with Charlie Day. Yeah, I thought it was a very, very well placed one. Because I hate April Fool's Day, obviously, because again, people are awful. And people are like just don't really like get it, and that, like in school, someone will come along and just punch you in the face and be like, "April Fools!" And it's like,
it's a funny joke.
I mean,
it's a very funny joke.
Very clever. That's what it is, Chris.
Yeah, the clever bit. I don't know if you got it. Is the potential to break your nose? That's where the joke comes
the
from.
Potential for permanent disfigurement.
Yeah.
But I do quite like it when people do take a bit of a well thought out.
Like
approach.
our one. We did a funny episode.
That was unbelievable.
That was really good.
That is, I should have shared it. Oh well. No one's going to listen to that, to be honest.
I do like when I upload the video versions that hello to no one when I upload these. And every week when I put up the next one, it's like, oh, no views.
Yeah. At least it requires minimal effort.
Yeah. It's just the 10 minutes of uploading time in the background. So the bandwidth is literally the only thing. It's the addition. And
hello,
the 10
and welcome to another episode of the O3C podcast, coming to you from O3C Games. My name is Jonathan Dunn, and I'm joined, as always, by my oldest friend, Chris Dow.
Mixed bean chili.
And we are going to be chatting about video games.
And chili.
Maybe. Oh.
Do we have a visitor? We have a visitor.
Hello, sweetheart. You want to say
hello, Nora.
You want to come for a cuddle?
Sidling out of the room.
Did you have a nice bath? Did you have a nice bath? Did you enjoy the whale?
The bathroom has a nice bath.
Because of the whale?
Because of the duck.
Oh, because of the duck. What happened with the duck?
Oh.
You playing the guitar for Chris?
The big jug of duck. Went all over the floor.
Hello.
Chris. You remember Chris, don't you? That's very good, Nora.
Oh, exploring some new sounds.
Yeah.
You go now. No.
Don't kiss.
You're going to go with Mummy? Do you want to take Link with you? No?
Don't kiss.
No.
No. You're going to go... Okay, bye.
We do as Wally.
I love you. Nora? Nora? I love you. I love you. Can I have a little kiss? That's a punch to the face. Can you kiss my head?
A loving punch.
Thank you. I love you. I love you.
I love
Yeah. Oh, she's so cute.
That was well censored. You caught that just in time.
Mate, seriously. Yeah, it's I'm good at that. I'll tell you who's not good at it is my brother Graham.
Is he not?
Who was on FaceTime with us, and it just constant.
A torrent.
F word, C words, just like, I was like, stop it. For a start, you're a priest.
Yeah. Not allowed to swear. God hates it.
Hello. Before we begin this next episode, we want to cordially invite you over to o3c.games/support to consider supporting us in one or many of a number of ways. On that page are links to our Patreon page, where you can pledge a monthly donation in return for a number of sweet, sweet perks. There's a one-off PayPal donation button if you want to chuck us a few quid to say thanks. Then there are links to share the podcast and the website on social media, which goes an enormous way to helping grow our audience. And also, you can, if you're listening to this on a platform such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can leave us a review and a nice big ranking to help the algorithms of the world pick us to pimp out to the world. Cheers! Christopher Dow, we are back.
We are.
And it's a Playdate update.
It is.
We're going to talk about Snak and Sasquatchers.
We are.
But first of all, we are not going to talk about what we've been playing, because first of all, have you seen the gameplay trailer presentation for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom that came out in this last week?
Of course I have.
Of course you have. Of course you have, because, as we all know, you love a Zelda game, and by that I mean you love a Zelda game. What? And that was Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of the Zelda games I enjoy, it's right up there. No, Breath of the Wild is outstanding, and the trailer looks really exciting.
I cannot believe that they've managed to find a way to inject even more versatility into the game with this new fusing system, which is they've just looked at the way that players have interacted with Breath of the Wild in terms of like all of the ridiculous sort of hacks that people have done with like putting a platform on a thing and then using your magnesis to do this and charge it so you can fly through the air, and going, well, if you like doing that, let's make it so you can do that. And you can now mix everything with everything for just the most incredible, like, just the most incredible creativity. Like, I cannot wait just to play around with that and just start thinking about how I'm exploring and how I'm approaching combat with just even more ridiculous ideas. And you can understand why it's taken 6 years to make it, because the amount of quality testing they're going to have done to get that mechanic working is absolutely unreal. It looks stunning and huge and refined, and I can't wait.
I think it's really impressive that Breath of the Wild, like you said, is 6 years old now, 6 years plus, isn't it? Essentially, because it came out at launch, and people are still finding new ways to do things in Breath of the Wild. There's at least one clip shared a week by some, absolutely crazy players around the world doing things that obviously were not intended when the game was built, but it was robust enough to allow you to do these things. The systems interlock in such a way that people said, well, if I can do A and I can do B, there's probably a way of kind of mixing them together. And like you say, it's been a long time, I think, of them looking at that and designing around the idea that we need more of this, and we need to just give players more abilities, I guess, just more ways to interact with the world, more ways to kind of pick stuff up, more ways to smash things together, more ways to get around. More ways to float through the floor. All these different new things. It's going to be really exciting.
One of the things I really love about the sort of Zelda sequels that we've had, because we haven't had many of them, is the way that they'll take the world, the characters, and the assets, and then just go, right, you think you know what you're getting with a sequel because certain things are going to look and feel very similar, but actually we've turned it all on its head, and you're going to be playing this in a very, very different way. You look at something like how Majora's Mask works compared to Ocarina of Time, and it's so staggeringly different, despite being, you know, on the surface, and if you look at the library of assets in the game, identical. And then you look at like the way that they evolved, like the Game Boy stuff with the Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, and you know, those two games bring something remarkably different, not only to each other but to, you know, Link's Awakening and Link's Awakening DX as well. And yeah, the thought that they're obviously doing that now with Breath of the Wild with that blueprint is so exciting, because you know that even though they've shown some of the new mechanics, we haven't even seen 0.5% of what's actually going to be in the game. We still don't really know, you know, really what things are going to be like, how it's going to play, and that's how I want it to stay, you know, because I was in two minds about whether or not I watched it or not, because I didn't want to be anything to be spoilt. But then, you know, Nintendo don't do that with, well, they didn't do that with Breath of the Wild, you know, and yeah, I just can't wait.
It's going to be good. It'll be a 10 out of 10, won't it?
Yeah.
It'll be a comfortable, easy run-in for Game of the Year, probably.
Yeah.
You know, Elden Ring's out of the way.
Yeah, that's fair.
This could be Nintendo's year again.
Sonic Frontiers was last year as well, so... what are you playing? Etc, etc. Oh, how many bits have you got?
I could do it in 2 if you want me to.
Yeah, let's do it in 2. I'll go first.
Okay.
Do you want to know what I've been playing this week, Chris?
It is how we start these shows off. So I think to keep to form...
Especially after I've just played the jingle. It'd be weird. Go on then. Here's the quiz. Inevitably, still playing Dead Cells. I realised that I'd never played the boss rush mode in the game, and you can play 4 different levels of boss rush per difficulty level in the game, and then the difficulty levels are the boss cells that you unlock after doing a run, and then you make it harder to do it again. And there's so essentially because there's 5 boss cells, there's 6 difficulty levels to then do 4 boss rushes to unlock more stuff. So I'm enjoying doing that, and that's just really, really good fun. The other thing I have continued to do is, of course, play Resident Evil 4.
Resident Evil 4.
Quattro. It continues to be unbearably brilliant.
Quattro formaggi.
In the hotel. I'm now well into the second area of the game, the castle area, and it looks jaw-droppingly good. It's still full of all the brilliant level design, as well as the aesthetic design, silly puzzles, hidden treasures, and all of that stuff. I've got Ashley in tow now, which is proving to be a significantly improved experience to this aspect in the original game. And this was the aspect why Resident Evil 4 wasn't in my top 10, and why it ended up being in like the 30s in my list, because Ashley, I just wanted to shoot her, and you can't.
Can you shoot her here? Can you shoot her in the remake?
But you don't really want to, because she's a lot more bearable. She's certainly more autonomous, and you can... there's now a new control. Just to a press of the button, you can choose whether she sticks close to you or she like goes and finds some cover, and it just makes for those bigger battles with her to be more, well, for a start, more dynamic, but also easier to navigate. Yeah. And thankfully, the dialogue and character of Ashley have been vastly improved with dramatic rewrites in this remake. It's not entirely without like the schlocky B-movie notes, which obviously fit with the larger tone, going on in these games, but you can't now actively look up her skirt for some cheeky comments. Similarly, the character of Ada Wong is now not wearing a skimpy red dress with a slit up to her armpit, which I don't know about you, but when I'm conducting my mercenary work, I go for something just a bit more practical. But it's wonderful to see that so many of these key elements have been addressed and vastly improved. And honestly, I had this when I replayed the original not too long ago, in the last year or so, whatever. And there's a whole section of the game that I just sort of forgot about, and it's sort of between the castle and then the third area, the island. There's this whole like underground mines and caverns and stuff like this, and again I'd forgotten about it, and I'm just doing that now, and it's brilliant, and it's so good, and I'm looking forward to finishing the game and just cracking straight on with New Game Plus, because I want to hoover up some of the collectibles and the secrets that I've missed this time round. But it's the only downside to this structure of the game, is that because I love exploring so much, you do go through multiple points of no return throughout the game, which means that if you do miss something, your chance is gone, this time round. But they are, like, flagged, which is quite good, and quite subtly as well, because basically, if the last time you see the merchant before a point of no return, he'll say something like, well, you better finish what you've been doing around here. Why not come back? And I kind of quite like that.
Yeah, keeps it gamey.
It keeps it game, exactly. That's the thing. And yeah, I mean, I don't really like points of no return in games because they fill me with anxiety. But that's a me issue.
Yeah,
and Capcom are moving towards a more like open, interconnected world setup, because like Village was sort of constructed like that, which is nice. It's more Metroidvania because you can sort of go back to areas, and with new abilities and new keys or whatever, and find more things. And that's nice. And it would have been nice to have that with Resident Evil 4. But then it's just so gosh darn diggity fun to play that playing through it numerous times is just going to be a pleasure, not a chore. And it's so good. It's so good. What have you played this week, Chris?
Very little new stuff. It's one of these weeks where it's not that I've been quite as busy as some weeks, but don't know, in the downtime I have had, I've just been playing Cannon on the Evercade, that strategy RPG that I was playing last week. And I'm still really enjoying it. Like, it's not too taxing. There's just enough strategy to each battle to make it feel engaging without being overly complicated. And I've quite enjoyed that. I think if someone was big into this as a genre, they'd say, this is over simple. This is a bit dull. But for someone like me who is not playing these games back to back forever, it's just something a bit different that I can sort of play and quite enjoy. I'm at a stage in the game now where each skirmish requires you to think carefully about the characters you're going to take into combat. Some might be better suited to the enemy types that are going to be present in that stage than others. And that's kept, what could otherwise be a bit samey, relatively fresh for me at least. Thinking, do I need to take a character with high movement and speed stats to try and outflank enemies? Or do I need a character who maybe can fly to cut straight across obstacles, as the crow flies, to avoid certain encounters altogether? Do I have enough magic restoring items in stock to rely on characters that use summons, but might have very weak melee attacks? Or do I double down on focusing just on brawlers and a healer to just keep them going? Even failure for a poor choice isn't too big a deal as well, because you retain all gained levels and experience even if you fuck up. Nice. It's surprisingly generous for a game of 1996. Generally, that's not how those games would run. Yeah. So that's been quite nice. So that if I do fail a stage, it might have taken quite a while, I can think, well, a bit of a setback, I'll come back tomorrow, I'll give it another go, knowing that, well, I did level up twice, so it's going to be 2 levels easier. That's quite nice. Outside of little dabbles here and there with Fire Emblem games on the 3DS and stuff like that, I've never been that big into strategy RPGs. Yeah. But for some reason, this game has just struck the right sort of balance for me. Guides I've checked online say I'm about 2/3 of the way through the game, and I've played it for 13 or 14 hours at this point. Stages are getting a lot longer, and that means I have had to actually use the Evercade's save states to pause my progress, rather than just relying on the in-game save thing. And I have a feeling that the remaining 10 or so battles may take essentially the same time again as I've already put into it if I'm going to try and finish it properly. But it's good. I like it. I really haven't played much else this week other than a quick playthrough of the new The World Ends With You tracks in Theatre Rhythm one morning before school.
Oh, fun. That's, I didn't realise that was...
Square Enix.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it's cool. Like, all the tracks are quite up-tempo, they're bouncy. You could even say gooey, as Rita Dunn might say.
Oh, yeah.
Songs of that series, it just adds more variety to kind of the Final Fantasy themed music in the main game. And I think there'll be a lot of fun to try and master properly when I next get the urge to dedicate a few weeks to playing Theatre Rhythm properly again. Because I've kind of cooled down after having 2-3 weeks where that's literally all I did.
Yeah.
Now I've stepped back and I just play it in little fits and starts.
Stits and farts.
Exactly. Despite being the big proponent of buying physical Switch games, I went digital with Theatre Rhythm because, frustratingly, there was no way to get the 30 or so additional DX exclusive tracks if you bought it on a cartridge. But I don't regret that choice, really, because having it permanently on the device alongside Tetris 99 and Grindstone and other kind of digital games means that I have instant access no matter where I am. And that really suits something like Theatre Rhythm, because sometimes I do just want to play 3 tracks and then do something else. And that kind of sub 10-minute play session really fits the instant on nature of a digital title really well.
Yeah.
At some stage when the game drops in price, I'll absolutely buy a hard copy for the shelf, for the shelf prosperity. But for actual play, digital has worked really nicely.
Have you got another chunk?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, good. Right. So I've been playing something else, and it is
What's that?
It's a mobile game. It's a mobile game, and that is the new Tomb Raider arcade roguelite type game called Tomb Raider Reloaded.
You may be shocked, I've literally never heard of this title.
So I hadn't either, and I was on IGN and I was reading an article about something, and then I saw like a related media article, whatever. It just said Tomb Raider Reloaded revealed, and I was like, oh, I wonder if that's like a film reboot or like the new game, like in the mainline series. And I checked it out, and it's just this little mobile game. And I honestly, I wouldn't usually have given this the time of day, because its freemium structure is as aggressive as any other game that I've seen within that. I played like the first few seconds of the game, and it is liberally riddled with energy meters, in-game currency of all kinds, geared entirely towards rinsing you of your money. But I won the lottery, and no, I haven't. And have now spent it all. No, but I saw that there were actually 2 versions of the game on the App Store, one of which is the Netflix version, because I don't know if you've seen much of this, but Netflix are now doing a similar type of thing to Apple Arcade.
I did hear about that, and then I couldn't quite get my head around what that was, and then I just never bothered looking into it.
It is basically the same as like you. I'd seen it and was like, "Oh, okay, Netflix are just doing free games for some reason." But it basically is, if you have a Netflix account, you log into the game with that, and then you play it. And it is like Apple Arcade, where those games are free, and they have the freemium content stripped out of them. So I've been having a really, really fun time playing the Netflix version of Tomb Raider Reloaded.
This is bizarre to me. I want to find out what's going on.
Yeah. So let me tell you about the game. It's a very, very simple setup. You basically have to fight your way through numerous stages in each of the locations from the original Tomb Raider game. So the first level is the caves, then you have the city of Vilsabama, then the Lost Valley, etc., etc. And each of these stages will have about 30 levels to get through. And you control Lara with a little virtual joystick running around to avoid enemy fire and traps. And when you stand still, you automatically attack what's near you. And then you get experience for beating enemies and bosses. And then when you level up, you get to pick an upgrade perk, whether that's like improving your damage or your attack speed. You downloading it?
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah. Or adding like poison or ice or fire damage to your weapon, or adding in like additional bullets and ricochets, or laying mines when you're standing still. And then you get stronger as you try and get through as many stages as you can and try and beat the final boss of the level. If you fail, you go back to your hub, and you can use all of the collectibles you've accrued on your run then to upgrade your gear and unlock new stuff to get stronger, to take on, more on your next run. And it's very, very simple, and it's really fun and really addictive. And I've ended up putting quite a lot of hours into it. one of the nice things is that I did get to a point where I saw that there was like, for, I don't know, 1,000 gems in the store, there was like a really, really good weapon, and I was like, I wonder if there is a way I could just buy a few gems just so I could get it, because you earn gems you know, in the game to then spend on chests to unlock or whatever, and you can't put money into the game.
That's good.
And I was
for
like,
you.
that's really good.
good.
That's really good for me. So yeah, it's been a very, very good toilet game, and I recommend giving it a blast. You can play it with in portrait mode with one finger, and
10 out of 10 from Jonathan Dunn.
For a mobile game, it's fantastic. It's just very satisfying, and it's good fun, and it's got really good music in it as well. It's using music from the original game, so like the menu music when you're like doing all your upgrades and stuff is the fantastic pause menu music from the original Tomb Raider, which is beautiful, and it's really nice that it's got all these nods to the original game that I love so much. There's a whole bunch of good games under this Netflix subscription. I had not heard of this as a service. I have a Netflix subscription. I must just be so kind of inclined just to ignore all marketing from anything that email me. I've probably had 50 emails saying, please enjoy your free games. And I'm like, fuck off, I'm not interested in all this shit. Yeah,
I could be playing
I
something
think
fun.
that like one of the first games that came out on it was a Stranger Things game.
Yes.
So I think that kind of came out with mixed. It was like, oh, Netflix game, Stranger Things. I'm like, oh, fine, it's Netflix have released a game. It's not like the game's been released on Netflix, if you know what I mean. But there we go. Have you played anything else?
I haven't, but I did want to touch on something that I don't even know if I've mentioned before, but it's certainly game adjacent. I think it's just something I wanted to talk about that's game related. I've been collecting video game soundtracks on vinyl for years now, like pretty much since the modern boom started with I Am 8-Bit putting out some old rare scores like Banjo-Kazooie and Perfect Dark back in like the mid-2010s, I say, could be slightly older. And over time, more and more publishers have been embracing the market and putting out, nice boutique releases of classic soundtracks for games like Shenmue or Rez or Tetris Effect or Hotline Miami or 2016's Doom. Like, there's a real range of stuff in terms of genre representation. What I wanted to mention, though, and what's been really exciting is seeing the bootleg market that has popped up. And I don't mean bootleg as in groups re-releasing snide copies of existing stuff, but rather dedicated superfans creating extremely lavish releases for titles that otherwise just would not get representation on vinyl. That's a lovely sound. Just have a little wank in the background. Like Nintendo, for example, are famously stubborn when it comes to meeting market demand for anything fans want. And as such, basically bootleggers have created insane sets for almost all the Zelda games, for Star Fox, for every Mario game, every Mario Kart game, made by fans for fans and pressed in total secrecy to avoid the wrath of Nintendo. Getting hold of these releases can be really tough because, by the nature of it, most bootleg labels operate closed-door policies where you need to know the right people to get invited into the winner's circle in the first place. And then if you do manage to get in, it's then proper Fight Club-style rules. Just, we do not talk about this. If you're sharing an image of the release, do not say what the label was, don't say where it's come from, because people are putting in, like, serious money off their own backs that could just get cancelled at any moment. But in the last few months, I've been really fortunate to have found myself able to procure a few notable releases, for me at least, that I didn't think I'd ever come across. And that's been really exciting. So, Skitchin from the Sega Mega Drive, it's a weird rollerblading spin-off of Road Rash that features really good chiptune approximations of kind of punk and grunge songs. And never thought that would get a release. Why would it? It was published by EA back in the day. They're not going to bring back something like that. But I loved the game and the soundtrack as a kid. And knowing that I now have this beautiful vinyl set is fantastic. It came with one-off hand-drawn illustrations, like hand-numbered, hand-penciled, hand-drawn illustrations, just popped inside the sleeve. It's got a load of boutique stickers inside it. Like, it's bonkers that something like that has been pressed by a dedicated group. Jurassic Park is another that I've managed to get hold of via a
NES.
second-hand sale. Yeah. Like
Unbelievable. Jonathan Dunn, of course.
exactly. The set includes both the NES and SNES soundtracks, courtesy of your namesake.
I can sign it for you if you want.
Please do. Please do.
You can then sell it with authentic Jonathan Dunn signature.
And I won't be lying.
And you won't be lying.
But like this release, the sleeve had specifically commissioned art that they paid an artist to do of Sam Neill and the dinosaurs in the front. The record's got a beautiful like splatter colourway on the vinyl itself. It comes with this insane guidebook that presents each track as if it's a paleontological artefact.
Beautiful.
It puts most genuine vinyl releases to shame. Because it's just a group who say, I love the soundtrack to Jurassic Park and I want to make this happen. And then they just work in secrecy until it just appears one day and everyone goes wild.
That's brilliant.
Over the last few months, or the last year, I'd say, I've also managed to pick up bootleg copies of Sonic 2, of Vector Man from the Mega Drive, of Animal Crossing Wild World, Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario 64, and a few others as well. And in the absence of legit sanctioned releases for these games, these sets more than make up for what would otherwise just be holes on the shelf.
Yeah.
They're not cheap. They do cost a bit of money because you have to really want these releases. But once you know that whole process that people are clubbing together to create these sets and standing to lose a lot of personal investment if the wrong people get wind of their work, it just makes me love them even more, because it's like the gall of someone saying, you're sending off the masters of Mario 64 to a pressing plant and signing the document just to say, yep, my music. Yeah, I made that.
Yeah.
And it's just like fan translations or modding projects like Clone Hero. It's just such a labour of love for the video game vinyl community, and I'm just really happy to own some of these because they are just really nice to have, to look at and to listen to. In terms of games, I'm on holiday from school now for a couple of weeks, so we'll see if I manage to play anything more gamey before we come back in a week to discuss some of this stuff again, because I'm sure I will have a bit of downtime to enjoy some old horseshit. It's a play date.
No, I've got one more thing to talk about.
Games for days. Games for days.
Yeah.
All right. Go on then.
Do you want to ask me?
Yeah. So, I mean, seeing that I've had a week of playing essentially nothing, you appear to have had a week of playing essentially lots. And I have a feeling you wouldn't go out on just saying I played a Netflix mobile title of Tomb Raider. There's something else. There's something else in your locker.
You're absolutely right. I have played another game, and I've managed to sort of play games in sort of quite a bitty way. The only reason why I've managed to put several hours into Resident Evil 4 is because I've been waking up at about like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, most mornings, not being able to go back to sleep and just being like, well, if I'm going to be tired and pissed off, then I may as well be doing that and playing Resident Evil. So I'll get up, I'll get myself a cup of coffee, and I'll put in a couple, 2 or 3 hours into Resident Evil before I have to get my daughter up for the day.
Yeah.
And that's been great. But then, throughout the day, in the evening, sort of, sat on the sofa, go to the loo, that sort of stuff. Tomb Raider's been really good fun, but also I picked up a new game that's come out on the Switch called Crano Origins.
2 out of 3 this week. This is the second game this episode that I have never ever heard of. I've not seen it on any new release page. I've not seen it on the Steam listings. What is it?
Okay, so Crano, Kraino.
Crano.
Crano. Yep.
Right.
I picked it up because it got a really good review on Nintendo Life. It got like a 8 or 9 out of 10 review, and I had some spare like eShop credit. It's only about a tenner anyway. And it's a really, really nice retro-inspired action platform game. It's not dissimilar to like classic Mario or Castlevania or Mega Man, but its easiest comparison is Shovel Knight, because it's a modern game in the 8-bit style, and also you attack actually in a very similar way to Shovel Knight's titular shovel. But in Crano, you are a skeleton man, and you have a big scythe. The levels are really intricately constructed with lots of secrets to find, and they've got like this slight sort of Mario Brothers 3 vibe of how it all fits together. I mean, it's not doing anything hugely original, but what it is doing, it's doing very, very well and very slickly. The reason why I picked it up is because in the negative section of the review, it said, might be a bit too short for some people. And I was like, put that in the pros.
Love a short game.
Yeah, and I was like, it was like, you could probably 100% it in 3 hours.
Oh.
I did it in just over 3 hours. And,
Perfect.
There's about 8 levels, and then there's like a sort of challenge remix of each of the levels as well. One of the really nice things is that all the levels are styled like totally differently, in the same way that like a Mario game would have like 8 different worlds with like 5 or 6 levels in each. Instead, it's just one level in each world, and they're all very, very distinct with like different enemies and different mechanics and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just really, really good. It looks I did a bit of digging to sort of try and talk a little bit more about it, and it looks like there's a sort of sequel in development called Crano Reanimated, which looks to be sort of adopting like a 16-bit aesthetic, similar to, you know, like what the Messenger did with like having those two styles. But from what I can see, it looks like Reanimated was in development first before Origins, and so like I ended up going on a bit of a deep dive, and I saw that Reanimated has a demo on Steam, which came out before Origins was released, but now Reanimated has a release date for like later this year. And I also saw that there was a failed Kickstarter campaign for Crano Reanimated. And I, from what I can tell, the game's predominantly made by one guy. Yeah. So, like, it's possible that, like, he tried to get funding to make Crano Reanimated, to make this fully fledged 16-bit game. When he didn't get that, he then sort of downsized his ideas to make this smaller 8-bit styled game, and now is using the profit from that to develop Reanimated. Maybe. I don't know.
That makes sense. That's possible.
It's possible. Let us know if you know. But yeah, if you're a fan of like classic Mario games, Castlevania, Shovel Knight, yeah, I definitely recommend giving Crano a crane go.
Oh!
Yeah.
Lovely.
Good game.
3 hours. Love it.
It's a play date. It's a play date. Right, it's what you're here for.
It is.
It's a Playdate update. 2 games this week. Snak and Sasquatchers. I'm going to tell you first about Snak, which is a game by Zach Gage, who I'm a fan of. And actually, I mentioned his game, Really Bad Chess, on a Playdate update before when we were talking about Questy Chess.
Yes, I didn't realise that was him.
Indeed. And I didn't realise at that point that he had actually made a game for the Playdate as well. So that's fun. He's primarily done sort of like smaller mobile games. He made Spell Tower.
Yes, that's good. That's a good one. Spell Tower's good.
He made 2 games called, well, one called Flip Flop Solitaire and one called Good Sudoku. And both of those games are similar in concept to Questy Chess, which is basically going, right, here's the rules of a game that you know, but I'm changing something because I think it will make it more fun.
Yeah.
And he does that very successfully. But the other game he made was called Card of Darkness, which was one of the early Apple Arcade games. It was like a sort of card-based dungeon crawler, really good art style. Yeah, really, really good. All absolute sort of bangers of mobile games. I also saw that he made the Mario Clock, which is a physical clock made from the fastest computer-assisted run of the original Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
So there's the computer-assisted run of that. So it's like what's like literally the fastest Mario can be played.
Yeah.
And then what this clock does is every day it displays 1 frame of that video. And then that runs for 25 years until it gets to the end of it. The mad thing is, I now realise that all of these things that I've just been talking about basically sounds like the April Fool's episode, and I'm trying to wind you up. I'm trying to wind somebody up with these things that I've just come up with, and it's totally unintentional that we're recording this on, well, April the 2nd now, so it wouldn't even work.
No,
but I think the best way to describe the work that Zach does is outside of the box.
Yeah.
He'll take a simple premise and turn it on its head. It's very much like what if development. And that brings us to Snak. And Snak is spelled S-N-A-K. And it's left the E off the end of the word snake, essentially, because what he's done is basically asked, what if classic mobile game Snake had a jump button?
Yeah.
So the concept of Snak is that you are a snake gobbling up. Oh no, sorry. So the concept of the original snake is that you are a snake gobbling up fruit, and with each fruit you gobble, your snake grows longer.
Yes.
And you need to keep weaving your way to find more fruit whilst avoiding your ever elongating body, because if you collide with yourself or the side of the screen, you'll die. And that's where Zach comes in, because he's added a jump button, so you can jump over yourself, or indeed onto yourself. And the reason why you need a bit of extra mobility in this game is that the fruit are now absolutely gunning for you, like evil
little
Pac-Men.
bastards.
Little bastards. GM food's gone very, very well, probably, actually. And these little fruit fuckers are trying to eat your head, eat your snack's head as a snake. No, eat your snake's head as a snack. And the way they typically do this is by chomping onto a part of your body and then running up your body towards your head. So you need to eat them either before they attach themselves to you, or by jumping onto the back of your own body and then eating them before they get to your head.
Yes.
I don't know if I've made it sound more complex than it is. Obviously, you've played it, Chris, so that makes sense to you. But when you're playing it, it is actually just really straightforward, because it is just classic Snake, which everyone knows, with one or two extra rules to integrate. And there's multiple difficulties for you to choose from, which basically just determines the speed that you go at. And you just need to try and get a high score. That's it, you know. I've said before on these that, you know, score chasing games aren't necessarily my bag, because I don't really find too much satisfaction from beating my own high score, unless there's like a particular score to aim for to unlock something else, you know, etc. But the game is slick, smartly designed, and once again, it's a really good example of how Zach Gage can iterate on a well-established idea in a fun, bizarre, and just very creative way. How did you get on with it, Chris?
I quite liked it. As a little Snake, not a clone, like you say. It's Snake, but iterating on Snake, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I read an interview with Zach Gage where he said when he was sort of given the Playdate to have a look at, to try and think about an idea for it, everyone was going, "Oh, the crank looks good," and these things like that. And he said, "I just like that I can work on a product that has a button," because he's worked pretty much exclusively on touchscreens.
Yeah.
And he said he wanted to make something that was quick and arcadey that you could come back to in 5 years and still know how to play, and would just be based purely around this idea of very binary, have I pressed the button or not sort of input. And it works well. You know, it is a Snake game. You are going for a high score, collecting the food. It feels quite good when you manage to line up a little jump properly to grab a piece of fruit as it's going down your body. So there's kind of an element of strategy to how you need to approach the crossover, as it were, because obviously if it gets to your head, you lose. So you've got to think about, how do I stop that from happening? And you know, it then naturally has these little daring moments where you don't think you're going to get there in time, and then you just about manage to, and it feels quite nice. But it is really hard to say that much about, because it is Snake with a jump button.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing. But it is Snake.
But that is it.
With the jump
button. Yeah.
Would you like to hear about the other game this week, which is a lot more than Snake with a jump button?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Sasquatchers, another S game.
Oh, those S games.
I mean, if Snak is a very minimalist thing that is iterating on something we all understand and know if we ever had a Nokia 3210, Sasquatchers is a lot more going on. It has a lot more going on. Like, if you do any research into Sasquatchers online, pretty much every first look or review goes, "Oh, it's a tactics game like Advance Wars, and it's spliced with a photography game like Pokemon Snap." And they're not wrong. It's very hard to think of a better comparison point, really, as Sasquatchers is absolutely a stage-based tactics game with grid movement and energy systems, where your goal is to take photographs of Sasquatches, or other cryptids, as they're called in the game. And it definitely has elements of that sort of Pokemon Snap style scoring system as well. But it is really complex and layered, and it's really interesting to pick through and get to understand. And even if it doesn't always work quite as smoothly as you may wish, certainly at the start when you're sort of picking through and kind of understanding how things work, it's not because it's bad. It's because this is a systems-based game of real ambition. And generally, especially on the Playdate, I will always take a slightly wonky but excitingly new and fresh game over something instantly familiar like Snak, which is taking something we know and then, just doing little bits to kind of tweak it in some way.
Yeah.
The basic setup of a stage in Sasquatchers is that you are moving your team of characters around a map. You're uncovering areas like fog of war style, as you do in most of these games, in an attempt to locate the beasties of whichever stage you're on. Your team consists of a camera operator, a lead host, because this is meant to be kind of like a group who are filming their adventures in a forest looking for Sasquatches and whatever else. And you also have a burly guy who can lure or calm monsters with you as well. And the aim is to manoeuvre the Sasquatches et al. Into an arrangement on the map that allows you to then enter a first-person camera mode and snap as many of them as possible in one scene, with bonus points then being awarded for clarity, composition and layout, and then a few extra modifiers like including teammates in the shot, or capturing certain cryptid actions will add a bit of extra score as well. As you move around the map, you need to balance your character's health, as they can be attacked by the same monsters you're attempting to log, as well as their battery power, which allows the camera operator, for example, to actually use their camera, and the host to use a smartphone to either illuminate an area with its torch or to use the front-facing camera for a quick and dirty snap to keep your score ticking over. Both health and battery can be topped up either by moving closer to your team's van, which sort of acts like another character, I guess, in that it can be manoeuvred around the map too, but only on designated road spaces, or by finding a campsite on the grid which can then be used as a place to stock up on energy and battery and everything else. It's quite a lot to consider all at once. Quite a lot to think about. And each stage has a set goal that you choose at the start. So it might be that you are trying to capture an image of every cryptid. It could be that you're trying to snap a shot worth a certain amount of points. And levels will basically carry on until that goal is met or your team has been vanquished by the marauding Sasquatches. Advanced Wars and Pokemon Snap may be the most obvious X plus Y reference points for the game. But the way you choose the goal you're working towards on each stage actually made me think a little of Cave Noir, because you had to sort of decide what you were going to do in every play.
Yeah, good spot.
And the way the first-person camera scenes are rendered really remind me of early golf games, like Mario Golf on the Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
Because it basically extrapolates the relative distance of objects and enemies from the grid layout, and then will scale the big sprites accordingly in the first-person camera view. And it's nice. I think it's a good game. Like, after about 20 minutes or so, I understood enough of how everything worked to actually start making a bit of progress in stages. And at that point, it becomes a really enjoyable little strategy game. What I liked about the rhythm of it is that because you're not attempting to take enemies down in a traditional way, it becomes a game of influencing their movement and positioning as opposed to being about leading your characters on the front foot all the time. So most tactics games are all about getting to an encounter first so that you have the best vantage point for cover or a slight attacking bonus for drawing first blood or something like that. And it makes a lot of these games, and I can say this quite confidently after playing Cannon for the last 2 weeks, they feel very direct. You're trying to just engage the enemy, deal with the encounters and move forwards. You're generally trying to get there as quickly as possible, almost as the crow flies, because that's going to give you the best chance of starting an encounter with some sort of advantage. But in Sasquatchers, you need to approach things completely differently, because finding a monster isn't enough. Like, ideally, you're aiming to find them in a nice open space so that tree trunks don't block your shot. You're aiming to try and bunch them up so that a single wide-angle snap is going to score maximum points for having 2 or 3 people on screen. You're aiming to have your characters already set in position, and the enemies being the ones that actually initiate the encounter, because you'll receive a points penalty, or then you won't have a points penalty to photographing directly after moving, because it says there's camera blur if you've run into position and taken a shot. So it's all little things you have to start considering. It just flips how you would normally play these games. Now, I've not played it, but I understand the game Into the Breach operates with some of those loose considerations as well. Because in that game, each small map is about taking down enemies, but also manipulating their movement around the map to protect certain structures or give yourself a tactical advantage that way. And everyone seemed to rave about that when it came out because it's a very different take on that sort of XCOM formula or any other tactics game, to be honest, that I've already mentioned today. And I think that's pretty cool. And Sasquatchers is, I guess, in that lineage, that it's taking, again, sort of the structure of a tactics game that we recognise, but really flipping a lot of the individual parts of that to make it feel quite unfamiliar, I guess, especially when you start out. The art in the game is a bit quirky. I spent a lot of my time looking at the screen and wishing the character designs were more stylised, like Demon Quest, or maybe more visually articulate, like Saturday Edition. But these nitpicks don't take away from a game that is doing something genuinely exciting and very new with its points of inspiration. So far more than Snak is just iterating on Snake to just add a jump. This is saying, okay, well, you know what a grid is, you know what a camera is, but the way we've melded these together is actually very, very different to what you might have expected. Did you enjoy taking pictures of hairy boys and hairy girls in the forest?
I think your summation of it is, well, for a start, spot on. I think there is so much going on in it that I think there's good stuff and bad stuff that goes with that. Like, as I was sort of learning about the game, there were so many elements that just really made me smile. I was just like, that's really clever. That's a really clever way of, like, interpreting that mechanic, like, classic mechanics from, like you said, like, things like Advance Wars, but being like, oh, actually, no, it's you've got to think about finding and setting up a base camp or getting, like you said, the right angle. The little touches, like, avoiding getting motion blur when taking a picture is... Yeah, you know, or that twist on that mechanic is brilliant. But there's so much to take in. Yeah. And it feels like when you pick up a Playdate, you're signing up for a specific type of experience. Yeah. And I'm going to sort of probably sound a little bit hypocritical here because I think the experience it feels like you're mostly signing up for is something like an arcade high score chaser type game. And that's not something that, like I said, I particularly like. So usually I get very pleasantly surprised when it's something that's more than that. Yeah. But I feel that's like the only thing I can say about Sasquatchers is I think that the game is too well developed and too fully developed for the Playdate. Because it's not dissimilar to Casual Birder in terms of like the things that it's asking you to do and the way, you know, it's in terms of like how it's using photography to like generate quests and the way that you need to then move and think about things and capture things. And I think Casual Birder kind of got it right for this hardware and the way that you're playing. Whereas I think that Sasquatchers deserves to be and would be a better fit on something like the Switch. Yeah. If it was then like more graphically developed, like you said, like because like what they've done and getting this game on the Playdate is insane. Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah. It is absolutely phenomenal. It is, I think, the most complete, like in the most typical sense, gaming experience that we've had in this season. Yeah, I think you're probably right. You know, it's extraordinary what they've done because it's not just going, right, let's do a turn-based strategy game or like a real-time strategy game or something like ridiculous. It's gone for a very, very specific idea in terms of like we want to do something about cryptozoology and all of this stuff and going like, you know, it's an incredibly considered game in terms of how it works and what they want to do with it. But it was just too much to take in whilst I was having a shit.
I think it's really interesting that the way we've been covering this stuff is obviously we've had, you know, a week or two in between each kind of Playdate update as we have been presenting them. But because we're doing other stuff, because we have jobs, because we have, you know, whatever other responsibilities.
It's not, child.
Yeah, that's a big one for you. But it's not that we are sat down and playing these games for 2 solid weeks. You know, we're finding little pockets of time, we're picking through so we can have these thoughts, we can discuss them together. But, you know, if you buy a game that you really enjoy, say, in a regular console, on a regular machine, that could be the game you're going to play for several weeks. But because we are almost indebted to the season format that we're trying to get through and explore all this stuff and see it, I think games like this will struggle more to be the ones that you keep coming back to because there is more to come back to, but it's not as immediate as something else. Yeah. So as much as the way we've talked about it today, I think we've been more positive in terms of the conceptual to sort of realisation stages of Sasquatchers versus Snak.
Yeah.
If I pick the Playdate up and I'm having a little poo and I just need to entertain myself for 30 seconds, probably going to load Snak, of the two. And that's quite strange. So it's like you say, the Playdate has this, it's a unique proposition in terms of what it offers, how you have to approach it, and down to little things like I'm sat in my lounge now. If I have the Playdate in front of me now, I need to move seat to be able to see it properly. I don't have a very well lit lounge.
Yeah.
Bathroom, blazing sun above me. Like it's the brightest fucking room in the house. So it's absolutely perfect. Suddenly the screen absolutely sings. But again, that's not the place I want to sit for 45 minutes and try and pick through a kind of long strategy stage.
No.
It's the type of place I want to have my 3310 and just go for a high score on Snake.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm saying or where I'm coming from. It'll be interesting once the season is wrapped up, I guess, if there will be games that we will naturally gravitate back to, if there'll be games that we never come back to again. Kind of, what does the console kind of look like when we're not working through it kind of systemically like we have done this season? Like, is it something we're still going to pick up? Is it something that we're going to have a few favourites that we want to actually flesh out and get through? I still haven't had time to finish Saturday Edition, and that's something that I loved for the little bit of time I was playing it. But it's just finding the time to actually say, no, this is what I'm going to do tonight. And Sasquatchers, I think, is one of those. There's an awful lot here. It could be something really quite special if I was willing to say, for 5 hours this week, I'm going to play this little Playdate game. Yeah,
because I think I did probably say about Casual Birder, I kind of wish there was more to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's, like I said, I think there is going to be a level of hypocrisy when it comes to critiquing these games because it is so new. Yeah. And I think nobody has really found exactly what the Playdate is perfect for.
Yeah.
And that's part of the exciting thing about it, is the fact that there are all these different games and all these different developers going, what about this? And people going,
maybe.
No. Maybe. No. Never do that again.
Yeah.
Never do that again. If you're going to write a game with lots of text, learn how to fucking write. Or I'll lose more than my marbles.
Yeah.
As an example.
Just hypothetical example. Though.
Just thinking. Just off the top of my noggin. Yeah.
What's next?
What's next? Let's have a look. It's a play.date, the website. Let's have a look. Oh no, that's the new ones. So next Playdate update is Forest Burns Up in Smoke by Nels Anderson.
That's the Firewatch spin-off, isn't it?
Yes. Which I just have no idea. I have no idea. No. I love the art of the. Goodness knows, you can talk us about that next week because I think it's going to be one that you really like. And the other game is Battleship Godios, made by TPM.co Softworks.
Of course. Rolls off the tongue.
I'm assuming it's it's a spin on Battleships.
Yeah.
But I'm just reading the blurb of it here. Battleships Godios, or Godios, is a game with a high level of difficulty and trial and error gameplay that makes retrying inevitable. Alright.
Souls-like.
That's... Souls-like is not trial and error. It
is for me.
Yeah, I don't like the sound of this.
Or
use the limited number of bullets to break down battleships. I like the sound of that. So who knows? We'll see. Tune in 2 weeks' time for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there we go. That is our latest Playdate update. Have you been playing your Playdate? Let us know if you have. Let us know what games you're enjoying. Let us know what other games you're enjoying. Let us know if you're playing games. Let us know if you're enjoying yourselves. No, don't do that. Not like that. But you can chat to us on social media. We are at O3C Games on pretty much everything. Or you can nail us down individually. I'm on Twitter at Jonathan Dunn.
And I am at Chaz_Hodges.
And do please check out our website, o3c.games, for all of our latest reviews, think pieces, articles, videos, the whole back catalogue of our podcast, loads of cool shit. I'll see you next week for just a bloody update on what we've been playing.
It's a regular update.
Yeah.
Regular old update.
Reg date.
There we go.
Upula. Upula reg date.
Put that in for,
Awful.
for an Upula reg date.
For an Upula reg date. Stop.